Greetings, traveler. I am Sir Nox, the teller of tales. Would you like to hear some? Before we get started, please consider subscribing to the channel, as it helps immensely. Look down. Is it still red? Please click it. Thank you. This one is called Stop Sexually Harassing NPCs. Well, that should go without saying. I am planning on starting a 2+ year long campaign, and before we begin, I asked my friend to run a one-shot to give me more time to prepare the content. I figured a one-shot would be a great opportunity for the new players to get acquainted. I had interviewed the players beforehand to make sure they would be a good fit for the game. This one guy, let's call him Hex, seemed great during his interview despite the one big red flag. He had told me he was brand new to D&D and had been banned or ghosted by his last DM, but he claims he didn't know why. I decided to give him a chance. We begin the one-shot and each player describes themselves. I describe myself as an old barbarian dwarf who carries the shell of a turtle and has a walking cane. I explain to the players that as I walk into the tavern, the other players can see me clearly scanning the room for a particular woman. After this, my character walks over to the waitress, trying to get her attention. Someone in the joke makes a group about my character being Master Roshi, and everyone laughs. The game continues. The tavern goes dark due to some sort of spell. Once the darkness clears, we notice a man who has been killed. The widow begins grieving, so I offer her a shell to cry on, tapping my turtle shell. Hex begins screaming, "Get away from her! Stop sexually harassing her! That's all you've been doing since you got here!" This player continues to try to exclude my PC during every single interaction and steps in between me and any female character I try to interact with to solve the mystery. Long story short, my character goes off on his own due to being blocked at every turn by this white knight. At one point, he even attacked my character simply for trying to ask an NPC a question. During the course of the game, he repeatedly swore at NPCs and even told a player to screw off and called him a freaking butthole, and threatened to one-shot him for simply walking through a door unannounced. I ended up solving the mystery by finding the black powder in the mouth of a deer head on the wall and confronting the bard that had a room next to it. At the end of the game, I explained to Hex that my character had come across a dead male turtle in the forest surrounded by 2 little baby turtle. The babies didn't want to leave without their father, and the only way to feed or take care of them was to wear his shell. I explained that I had vowed to find their fathers killed. I'm assuming that's father's killer, which ended up being the bard, and that was my character's final quest before passing away. The 2 baby turtles were in my shell the entire time. I roleplayed it that way too. I explained to him that the reason I was looking at women in the tavern was because I was looking for their mother. I asked several NPC for a female turtle. The reason why I followed the waitress was to get a drink from being parched from weeks of traveling mountains to get there. And the reason why I tried to console the widow, who had just lost her husband, was because I could relate to the baby turtles in my shell losing their father the same way. He ended up apologizing and feeling bad for what he did to me and my PC. I ended up removing him from the group and explained to him the reason why. I also told him it was because he was vaping in-game and coughing non-stop. He had promised me he wouldn't smoke during games during the interview. He then began spamming everyone in the group, begging them to let him back into the group, acting as if he had no idea why he was removed. The resulting drama he caused ended up causing one of my best players to drop out of the campaign. In hindsight, I should never have allowed him in my game when he told me the last DM banned him. That's interesting how he gets banned a second time and then plays, "Oh, I have no idea why. Why did you ban me?" It is interesting, though, that he apologizes and you go, "That's fine," and then ban him. Usually with an apology, you'd expect a second chance, right? But you don't have to. You know, you don't have to give one. If that was that did sound rather annoying. Someone trying to accuse you of things all the time. That is super annoying. I guess I don't blame you for banning him. I just find it funny that he apologized and then you ban him still. But the vaping thing, that would certainly be super annoying. Anyways, our next one is called Insecure Immature Player Tries to Gaslight Me About My GMing Practices. Oh, well, I'm curious what happened. Sounds like something we almost experienced in the previous story, right? Not quite gaslighting, just more. Anyways, whatever. That's in the past. Like most here, I've had a fair few horror stories as a player, but this is my only major one as a GM. It's not as dramatic or twisted as some stories on here, but the behavior was insidious and targeted my values as a person. I'm running a 5th edition for 3 dudes, and this problem player, PP, a lady. I'm male, most of my RPG groups are quite gender diverse, usually 50% men across 25 years of playing. As things got bad between us, she often made her gender an issue, essentially accusing me of handling the rules differently for her because she was the only woman in the group, which is why I'm mentioned it here. I actually had a female friend come guest NPC one time just to make sure I wasn't, in fact, being sexist. The guest said I was fine, but PP was intolerable. Before I go further, bear in mind this woman was around 40 at the time and an experienced TTRPGer. So we're not talking about someone new to D&D or just too young to know better. Before we all meet up for the campaign, for the first time, I ask her what the best method of communication is for her, and she says it's email, not social media. Cool, no problem. So ahead of session 0, I sent out, via email as requested, some things about the campaign premise and a link to my house rules document, which is about 2 pages and very thoroughly tested. Turns out she never read it, so when I started enforcing my house rules, she flips out on me. Similar things happen whenever I enforce their rules that aren't the most well-known. For example, if the party travels more than 8 hours in a day, they have to start making con checks for exhaustion. That's not one of my house rules, it's just how the game works. When I brought that up one time, PP acted like I'd smacked her in the face. Even more basic things became a source of tension, resentment, and accusations. The way I handle skill rolls is I always say the DC out loud, as well both the consequences of success and failure. I run 5th edition like it was an indie RPG, essentially. It's maximum transparency all the way, but anytime PP failed a roll, she'd lose her stuff. Hell, even basic attack roll failures were met with dramatic sighs and groans. In fact, I'll go further. She seemed positively triggered anytime anything bad happened to her PC, no matter how it had been set up. Whenever we tried to communicate about it out of game, like between sessions, we even met up for lunch one time just to talk about this stuff, she assured me she didn't want to quit the game, but that she felt targeted by my GMing. I don't remember exactly how I responded, but I think I tried to be reassuring and... Anodyne? Is that a new word? I've never seen that word before. The accusations and recriminations had me feeling awful by the end of every session. I came very close to kicking her out, which I should have done way back at the beginning, in hindsight, as in so many stories on this sub. It was just such a strange source of unhappiness and criticism, since it wasn't based in reality that I didn't know how to deal with it at the time. She eventually left the campaign when I went away for about a month, and when I came back I was able to finish the campaign with the other 3 players. The whole experience with PP, though, was just an incredible abuse of my efforts to be inclusive while still providing a challenge in D&D. So that's why it has stayed with me for a number of years now. Thanks for reading. Well, that sounds terribly annoying and frustrating. I guess it worked itself out, right? Sometimes you just need to take a break and the problem players will just sort themselves. But yes, that could be rather annoying to have someone that's constantly feeling targeted. I guess that could be an insecurity thing that they're working on and just kind of projecting out. And unfortunately, you or the wall that projection was put upon. But it sounds like it worked out, and hopefully your campaign is going fantastic now. Our final tale for today is called Roll for Body Part Sizes. Yikes. While I've roleplayed a lot in many places and ways, I'd never done tabletop roleplay until several years ago. The person, who we will call that guy, who dragged me into it, and is now my ex, convinced me that my issue and issues with it were all just hang-ups about not being used to the way things are with tabletop games. Hold that thought. I was dragged into several private campaigns between just that guy and myself with his homebrew campaigns, and sometimes group games that never lasted that involved that guy DMing for a group of other people that included myself. That guy would pull me aside before session 00 or session 01 every new campaign to tell me how, 1, He knew deep down inside I was going to make a character that was going to go completely out of the bounds of his expectations. 2, the character I'd make would be too comedic for the session, and this was a reminder to not ruin his experience. 3, would upset his carefully constructed stories. Or 4, were the same character every time. They were not even remotely similar. Fun fact, while I have a sense of humor as a player, I typically don't play comedic or joke characters, and I never ever try to deliberately bother a DM, GM, storyteller, etc. I tried to explore the storyline canvas they're painting for me as a player. Anyway, that guy would lecture me about my failures as a role player and then say I was being manipulative and distracting from his ability to share his feelings when I eventually started crying, since this would often be an hour or more of getting blasted and I'm eventually tear up. Then we'd go to the session with the expectation that I'd learn something from that conversation and would behave or something. So I'd fake being cheerful and wouldn't actually have fun until later sessions in every campaign. And the fun was always with other players trying to have normal character interactions. But that's not all. No, that guy needed people to roleplay sex or sexual traits, even when they felt it wasn't something their character would focus on or do. We're all adults in these sessions, but many times people would say they didn't feel like a character's genitalia descriptions really needed to matter. I'm with them on that one. And the response would instead be, I think it's important we explore why you feel like that in a fictional setting. Let's roll for some size of your character's insert primary or secondary sexual traits here. You don't mind if I roll the size for you, right? Oh, I rolled a 20, so let's say your character's wiener's huge! And somehow we would all try to give that guy the benefit of the doubt and go, well, that's weird, but that initial thought seemed to be coming from a good place, right? Right. The correct answer is no, but my group of socially awkward friends sure thought otherwise at the time. Eventually, I started asking him, why is he yelling at me at the start of new campaigns for reasons I've been able to repeatedly prove are incorrect? Why is he pushing sexual content on myself and others when we clearly don't really want to focus on it? Why did that guy's thoughts and feelings on campaigns matter more than everyone else's? Why were these concerns things that were just, in his words, how things are with tabletop games? Eventually, I dropped all campaigns with that guy and exited his life. Later, I found out there were several attempted campaigns with other people, one-on-one, who dropped the campaigns immediately because he tried to make them roll for the size of their character's chest or lower half. I commend these people for having the common sense I lacked back then. Well, yes, that's clearly red flag all over the place, right? But I guess hindsight, right? 2020, all that good stuff. Unfortunately, someone like that will probably never learn and will always have a crowd to torment. I'm sure most people will leave, but unfortunately, that's probably going to be just something that goes on forever with that person. Hopefully none of us stumble into his campaigns, right? Anyways, that concludes our tales for today. If you'd like to hear more, come back and I shall tell you some.